The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time captured the attention and imagination of a whole generation of children. While the entirety of Ocarina of Time is magnificent, the Kokiri Forest starts the game off on a perfect note. And I'd argue that the game's intro level is the most important part, because say 100 gamers play a game, maybe only 25 to 50 will actually reach the end, but every single one will experience the first level, so it needs to be amazing. Zelda games typically have top-tier intro levels, but none surpass Ocarina of Time. And let me clarify that this isn't about intros, which is a sequence of events at the beginning of a game, but rather the space the intro takes place in. Areas share a similar theme, are interconnected, and are accessible fairly early into the game. We're talking the Kokiri Forest, inside the Great Deku Tree, the Lost Woods, and the Sacred Meadow. These areas did so well that, as a kid, I'd explore wooded areas and pretend I was in the Kokiri Forest. And now, as an adult, it's still my happy place that I retreat to. So let's take a deep dive into what makes the Kokiri Forest the greatest initial area out of all the Zelda games. Chapter 1. Atmosphere. Completely losing yourself in a game is a rare treat, as it takes a combination of sights and sounds for a game to seemingly transport you to another world. Games should strive for this level of immersion in every level, but it's extra important for the intro area because you only get one shot at a first impression. That's why you typically find some of the coolest sights in the first part of a game, or how horror games show you something extra scary at the beginning to really set the tone. It needs that hook. And there are so many things that the Kokiri Forest does to create a whimsical feeling. Everywhere you look is just a lush green. In the distance, you see just enough trees covered in a thin fog that really sells how isolated the Kokiri Forest is from the rest of Hyrule. And the inside of the huts are so cozy, I could just stay here and nap forever. But by far my favorite thing about the Kokiri Forest is all the floating spheres of light that make the forest seem much more alive than any other environment in Hyrule. All of these fun features piques my curiosity and makes me want to explore every nook and cranny. And this speaks nothing of the Kokiri children that complement the forest perfectly with their smiling faces and funny quirks. But all sunshine and rainbows gets boring fast, so we have the Great Deku Tree to balance things out. Even a child can grasp the Great Deku Tree's importance thanks to his size and the solitary space he inhabits. He just radiates sacred energy. And then was anyone else terrified of the Deku Tree dungeon? What a complete 180! It went from dancing spheres of light to whatever the hell these things are. It's this rapid transition that makes the experience so memorable. As much as I love the Kokiri Forest, atmosphere is typically the Legend of Zelda's specialty, as every 3D title has amazing intro areas. But as the first 3D title, Ocarina of Time set the bar, and boy did the Kokiri Forest set it incredibly high. And if you didn't grow up playing Ocarina of Time, the Kokiri Forest might seem small and unimpressive, but I think Nintendo was able to cram so much charm here. When I was a kid, I couldn't believe my eyes when I first walked out of Link's house. It felt like I left my living room for another world. But a great intro area needs to do more than look good. Chapter 2. Handholding. One of the most difficult decisions game developers face is how much handholding the intro should include. Too much, future replays become a chore. Too little, the first-time player is unprepared. Make it too hard and you get driver. It's a delicate balance that Ocarina of Time walked perfectly. Ocarina of Time satisfies both new and old players by making the win condition pretty quick to complete and sprinkling optional NPCs throughout the Kokiri Forest to act as trainers. Which is perfect, because a casual player can easily clear the Great Deku Tree and make it to Hyrule Castle in a solid 20 to 25 minutes. Where there are Zelda games that I can't even touch again because of their openers. You mean I have to do this twice in Twilight Princess? And while returning players are in and out quickly, first-time players will need some time, as the Kokiri sword is just well hidden enough. And honestly, finding the sword and buying the shield teaches new players everything they need to know about Ocarina of Time. That progress requires finding key items and how shops work. Heck, farming for rupees even teaches the bare basics of combat. And say players start wandering in the Lost Woods where they shouldn't be. FYI, I love how you can reach the Sacred Meadow right away. Navi is quick to put them back on track. The Kokiri Forest absolutely threaded the needle in a marvelous way. As a new player, I'm feeling accomplished because I just overcame the first of many obstacles. And on the second playthrough, I'm thankful I can speed through it, which isn't always the case with Zelda games. But what really makes an intro level is context. Chapter 3. story. The Legend of Zelda, unlike many other Nintendo games, is narrative-driven. So each game section needs to contribute to the overall plot, and the Kokiri Forest accomplishes that by showcasing some of the most powerful cutscenes, the death of the Great Deku Tree, and Saria's Faria Ocarina gift to Link. How Nintendo can make a bunch of 10-year-olds feel so deeply for an inanimate tree is a testament to their storytelling ability. The music stops, you hear this ghoulish crinkle as he turns gray, just chills. And then this little step back Link takes after talking to Saria just says so much. Ocarina of Time couldn't create complex facial expressions or play flashy animations, but despite the tech limitations, Ocarina of Time clearly communicated what was at stake and how hard this journey is for Link. And not every Zelda game successfully sets up the stakes in such an artful manner. But the coolest thing about the Kokiri Forest is how it changes throughout Ocarina of Time's plot. I think a successful intro should change with the story, as it can show how much different things are from the start. Think about how the once safe, peaceful Kokiri Forest becomes a monster-filled nightmare once Link removes the Master Sword. It really shows how much control Ganondorf has over Hyrule. And the backtracking to the Kokiri Forest could have been a real chore, but instead, players only need to hike it back twice for 2 meaningful encounters. This keeps the Kokiri Forest in players' mind without leaving a bad taste in their mouth. Which is interesting, as a good chunk of Zelda games don't utilize their intros effectively story-wise. I mean, Skyloft and Clocktown are more like hub worlds than anything else. What's the point of returning to the Great Plateau except to turn in spirit orbs? And it really feels like Wind Waker shoehorned the Windfish and Savage Labyrinth onto Outset Island. It's all of these reasons and more that make Ocarina of Time's Kokiri Forest the greatest intro area out of all the Legend of Zelda games. What do you think about the Kokiri Forest and other intro areas? Let me know in the comments below.